Maria Hernandez, a mother of three, sits at her kitchen table, her face etched with worry. Her husband, Miguel, is gone. ICE officers detained him at their local grocery store, tearing him away from his family. Miguel, a construction worker who has lived in the United States for 15 years, is now facing deportation. He has no criminal record. His only crime is being undocumented. Maria is left to care for their children, terrified and unsure of what the future holds. The Hernandez family's story is not unique. It's a stark illustration of the human cost of President Trump's 2025 immigration crackdown. This crackdown, launched immediately after his re-election, represents a significant escalation of his administration's hardline immigration policies. The impact is being felt across the nation, from bustling cities to quiet rural towns, as families are torn apart and communities grapple with the consequences. Fear and uncertainty have become a way of life for millions of immigrants living in the shadows. Trump's 2025 crackdown differs significantly from previous efforts. No longer are authorities solely targeting undocumented immigrants with criminal records. The net has been cast much wider, ensnaring individuals like Miguel Hernandez, who have been living and working peacefully in the United States for years. Deportation numbers have skyrocketed. Over 200,000 deportations occurred in the past year, a 30% increase. The administration justifies this aggressive approach by citing national security and public safety concerns. They argue that stricter enforcement of existing immigration laws is necessary to protect American citizens. However, critics argue that this broad-brush approach is inhumane. They say it indiscriminately targets individuals who pose no threat while tearing apart families and communities. The crackdown has sown fear and uncertainty among dreamers, recipients of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals (DACA) program. These individuals, brought to the United States as children, know no other home. They are contributing members of society, working, studying, and serving in the military. Now their futures are in jeopardy. Take the case of Officer Luis Ramirez, a DACA recipient serving in the Los Angeles Police Department. Officer Ramirez has dedicated his life to protecting his community, yet he now faces the possibility of being deported to a country he barely remembers. His story highlights the absurdity of a policy that threatens to deport individuals who are serving and protecting the nation. The resurgence of ICE raids has sent shockwaves through immigrant communities. These raids, often conducted in collaboration with other law enforcement agencies, have become increasingly common. In Denver, a recent raid resulted in the detention of 29 individuals, spreading panic and fear far beyond the single alleged gang member who was the target. Communities are fighting back. Protests have erupted across the country, condemning the raids and demanding protection for immigrants. In Passaic, New Jersey, demonstrators rallied, calling for statewide protections for immigrants. These protests highlight the growing resistance to the crackdown and the unwavering commitment to protecting vulnerable communities. Section 5. Empty fields, empty plates. The crackdown is having a devastating impact on industries that rely heavily on immigrant labor, particularly agriculture. In California, for example, an estimated half of all farm workers are undocumented. The fear of deportation has led to labor shortages, threatening the stability of the agricultural sector and the nation's food supply. Farmers like Peter de Jong, who relies on immigrant labor for his California farm, are caught in the middle. While de Jong supports stricter immigration enforcement, he also acknowledges the essential role immigrant workers play in agriculture. He advocates for legal pathways for migrant labor, recognizing the current system for obtaining legal status is slow, cumbersome, and often prohibitively expensive. Section 6. Sanctuaries under siege. The Trump administration has escalated its attacks on sanctuary cities, jurisdictions that limit their cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. Chicago and the state of Illinois are currently facing lawsuits for their sanctuary policies, which the administration argues obstruct federal law. Los Angeles, another sanctuary city, is also in the crosshairs. The city faces the potential loss of crucial federal funding due to its refusal to fully cooperate with ICE. Since 1979, the Los Angeles Police Department has maintained a policy prohibiting officers from initiating contact with individuals solely to determine their immigration status. This policy is seen as crucial for maintaining trust between law enforcement and immigrant communities. However, the Trump administration views it as an obstacle to its enforcement efforts. Section 7. Tension at the border. Tensions remain high at the US-Mexico border, particularly in Texas, where ports of entry play a vital role in the regional economy. The deployment of troops and the cancellation of the CBP-1 app, which allowed migrants to schedule appointments with Border Patrol, have created chaos and confusion. The administration argues that these measures are necessary to combat drug trafficking and maintain border security. They point to the recent seizure of over 2,000 pounds of methamphetamine and heroin as evidence of the ongoing threat. However, critics argue that these policies are inhumane and counterproductive. They say that closing legal pathways for seeking asylum only forces migrants to resort to more dangerous methods of crossing the border. Section 8. Voices of Resistance. Across the nation, communities are mobilizing to resist the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Protests and demonstrations have become a regular occurrence, with participants demanding an end to the inhumane treatment of immigrants. These demonstrations often feature a sea of signs and banners, with messages like "families belong together" and "no human being is illegal." Beyond the protests, a network of organizations and individuals is working tirelessly to provide support and resources to immigrant communities. These groups offer legal aid, know your rights trainings, and sanctuary spaces. They provide a lifeline to those facing deportation and their families, helping them navigate the complex and often hostile immigration system. Section 9. A Nation Divided. The Trump administration's immigration crackdown has deepened the divisions within American society. While the administration justifies its actions on the grounds of national security and law enforcement, critics argue that the policies are cruel, inhumane, and driven by xenophobia. The debate over DACA in particular exemplifies this divide. President Trump has sent mixed messages about DACA, creating uncertainty for the program's beneficiaries. He has both praised dreamers and threatened to end the program that shields them from deportation. This inconsistency has fueled anxiety and fear among dreamers, leaving their futures hanging in the balance. The battle over immigration policy is far from over. It is a battle being fought in courtrooms, on the streets, and in the halls of Congress. At its core, it is a battle over the very soul of America, a nation built by immigrants, yet grappling with its identity in an increasingly diverse world.